There's a wall in your living room, and every evening the whole family faces it. Plato described the setup 24 centuries ago, a row of people watching shadows. Certain the shadows are the world. He also wrote The Way Out. It reads like a job description for parents.
Hi, I'm Bruno, a dad of three, no expert, just chasing a bit of wisdom before the clock runs out. If you're on the same road, subscribe and walk with me.
Well, look at the modern parenting shelf, and you see one picture repeated. The child as a container, flashcards to fill them with letters, apps to fill them with math, enrichment schedules to top them up on weekends. More in, better child. Plato looked at the same picture 24 centuries ago and called it backwards. The capacity to see, he says, is already in the child. Nobody installs it. What a child lacks isn't content, it's direction. Which way are they facing? That one swap, from feeling to turning, quietly rewrites the whole job. The question stops being how much did we get in today and becomes the stranger, better one. What is this child looking at and who aimed them there? That's this episode. The Republic builds toward its most famous image, prisoners chained in a cave, mistaking shadows on the wall for the real world. The moment the argument turns practical comes just after the prisoner is dragged into the sunlight, when Socrates says what an education actually is. Not the filling of an empty mind, but the turning of a soul that can already see. But then, if I am right, certain professors of education must be wrong when they say that they can put a knowledge into a soul which was not there before, like sight into blind eyes. The power and capacity of learning exists in the soul already, and the instrument of knowledge can only, by the movement of the whole soul, be turned from the world of becoming into the world of being, and learn by degrees to endure the sight of being, and of the brightest and best of being, or, in other words, of the good. Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett. Plato's target is a picture of education most of us still carry. The child as an empty vessel, the parent and teacher as powers, knowledge as the liquid. Socrates calls that picture exactly wrong. You cannot put sight into blind eyes, he says, because the eyes were never blind. Every soul already has the power of seeing. What it lacks is direction. And the Greek word he uses for what education really is, periagoge, means a turning around, not adding a faculty, but rotating the whole person. Eyes and appetites and loves together, until they face what's real instead of what merely flickers. Notice how much that changes the parent's job description. A powder needs content, volume, delivery. A turner needs something else entirely. A sense of which way the child is currently facing, and a hand steady enough to redirect it, gently, repeatedly, against resistance. And Plato is blunt that there will be resistance. The prisoner doesn't thank anyone at first. Light hurts eyes that have just adjusted to the dark. Anyone who has taken a tablet away mid-video has field data on this. Plato builds the resistance into the story. The prisoner doesn't stroll out of the cave, he's dragged, and the light makes his eyes ache, and his first instinct is to turn back to the comfortable shadows. Every parent has run this experiment. End the video mid-episode, and the protest isn't gratitude, it's grief. Announce the walk, the chore, the paper book, and watch a soul clutch its shadows. Here's what the allegory gives us that a parenting blog can't. The discomfort is not a malfunction. Turning hurts because adjustment to the dark is real. The eyes generally have to relearn. A parent who reads every protest as proof of wrong decision will never turn anyone towards anything. Plato's counsel is steadiness. Expect the ache, stay kind, keep turning. Comfort is not the compass. Well, here's what's eerie about the cave. Plato specifies that the shadows are cast by puppets, artifacts carried by unseen people projected for an audience that can't see the projectionists. That's not a bad description of a feed. A child today can know an influencer's kitchen better than their own street, a game's map better than their neighborhood, a highlight reel better than any real face. And Plato's point is subtle. Shadows aren't lies, exactly. They are real shadows of real objects. The trap is not knowing there's a difference. So the parent's task isn't smashing the projector, it's supplying acquaintance with the originals. The actual kitchen, the actual street, actual faces in actual light. A child who has touched the real thing can enjoy its shadow without mistaking it. That immunity is built by hand. Simone Weil, one of Plato's deepest modern readers, said attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Iris Murdoch, another, defined the moral life as a slow redirection of attention towards what's real. Both were unpacking this exact passage. If sight can't be installed, then everything else depends on where the eyes are trained to rest. And attention is trained domestically. What does the household point at? What gets, come look at this, shouted about? A sunset, a beetle, a well-made thing, or only the phone passed across the table? Children calibrate what deserves a gaze by watching what earns hours. This is teaching without a single lesson. The parent who stops to look hands the child a habit of stopping. The gaze is the syllabus. Aim is out loud, as real things, and turning happens almost by itself. Listen to the question we all ask at pickup. Did you learn anything today? It's a porous question. It audits the intake, like checking a tank. Plato would suggest the Turner's version. What did you notice today? The first question a child answers with a shrug because it asks them to inventory a delivery. The second asks where their soul was pointed, and children light up answering it. The weird cloud, the unfair rule, the kid nobody sat with. Socrates taught by questions for exactly this reason. A question doesn't insert anything, it rotates. An experiment for the school run. Swap the audit for the aim. Every day for a week. The answers get longer, the conversations start facing somewhere. Periagoge, Plato's word, is a turning of the whole soul, not just the eyes. And that detail carries hard news for parents of teenagers. You cannot argue a person into caring. Arguments address the reasoning part. The loves still stay facing wherever they were. What turns loves into exposure to someone else's? Up close. Periagoge, Plato's word, is a turning of the whole soul, not just the eyes. And that detail carries hard news for parents of teenagers. You cannot argue a person into caring. Arguments address the reasoning part. The loves stay facing wherever they were. What turns loves is exposure to someone else's, up close. A teenager who watches an adult genuinely absorbed in honest work in a garden, in prayer, in a difficult book, absorbed for its own sake and not for an audience, is watching a soul face something real, and the sight is contagious in a way no lecture has ever been. This is why the most persuasive thing in a house is never what gets said in it. It's what the adults are visibly turned toward when nobody's performing. Souls orient on other souls. That's the mechanism. Here is the line this channel exists to say in Plato's image. What a parent hands a child was never going to be sight. Sight can't be transferred, and neither can judgment, faith, or a taste for what's real. What a parent can give is direction, which way the young soul is habitually turned, and what it sees the adults in the house facing, day after day. Provision fills the room a child lives in. Only orientation decides what the child looks at. The first is easy to measure, the second is the education. The ending of the allegory is the part parents should frame. The prisoner who reaches the sunlight doesn't get to stay there. He goes back down into the dark, into the noise, to sit among the shadows again. Because the people he loves are still chained in front of the wall. That's the job, isn't it? Not shouting down from the daylight that the shadows are fake, but descending. Sitting beside a child in front of their show, playing the game with them, learning the names of the streamers, and then, from inside, pointing at the door. Guides who won't re-enter the cave get dismissed as voices from nowhere. The ones who come back down, Plato says, see poorly in the dark at first and look foolish. Do it anyway. There is a hard humility in this passage for every parent who has tried to hand a child their hard-won lessons. The freed prisoner cannot transfer his sight. He can only walk with someone up the slope while their own eyes adjust. We try constantly to skip this, to spare our children the burn of the light by describing it. I made this mistake so you don't have to. And the lecture bounces off every time, because knowledge of that kind is acquaintance, not information. They will have to see for themselves, at their own speed, squinting. What we control is smaller and better than we wanted, the direction of the walk and the company. A guide beside them on the slope, not a stretcher carrying them up it. That's the whole offer. There's an arms race running in modern childhood. More activities, more apps, more facts per afternoon, volume as virtue. Plato hands worried parents a quiet exemption. If education is turning rather than feeling, then a well-aimed ordinary childhood beats a stuffed, disoriented one every time. A child who has been oriented towards real things, honest work, actual faces, carries a compass into any territory. A child who has merely been fueled carries luggage. Well, so here's a small aiming tool for dinner. No curriculum required. Ask what's the most real thing you saw today. Expect confusion at first night. By the third, everyone at the table is scanning their day for it, which means the exercise worked before anyone answered. Remember which book this cave sits in. The Republic isn't a parenting manual. It's a book about justice and about how cities fall to demagogues. The cave is Plato's diagnosis. People who cannot tell images from originals are governable by whoever runs the projector. That raises the stakes on everything domestic. A child taught one habit to ask of any glowing thing who made this image and what do they want from me is being fitted for freedom and that old sense, hard to rule by shadows, hard to sell to, hard to stampede. Every advertiser and every algorithm bets against that child. The bet is usually safe. It fails in houses where someone kept turning the young soul patiently towards the real. Raising free people was always the political act hiding inside bedtime. Well, in Plato's cave, the one who reaches sunlight goes back down into the dark, because the people he loves are still watching shadows. That's the job. Sit beside them, learn the game, then point at the door. And tonight, one tool. Ask at dinner, what's the most real thing you saw today? When did your children last see you absorbed in something real? A book, a craft, a repair, a prayer, and not a screen. I genuinely want to know. Tell me in the comments. If this gives you something, well, subscribe. That's how Roots and Reasons keeps going. Thank you.